Convicted of taking the life of a 4-year-old when he was just 15 himself, this man just had another appeal denied by the Arkansas Supreme Court. It was July 26, 1986, in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where this terrible crime took place. On that particular day, it was a Saturday, and it was hot, extremely hot, like you can imagine any day in Arkansas in July. That day in the Lewis Plaza apartment complex, Barbie Thompson was playing just like any other day. It was that particular day that a neighbor kid named Christopher Segerstrom decided to lure Barbie into the woods. He lured her with the promise of catching butterflies, and what little girl doesn't like to catch butterflies? According to a police officer that worked in Fayetteville at the time, Christopher Segerstrom was a child that had been in trouble plenty of times up to that point, up to the age of 15 when all of this happened. He got in trouble for doing things like killing neighborhood animals like chickens, cats, and dogs. So I don't know that him doing what he did that day was a huge surprise to the people that had been involved with him in the past. At any rate, police came to the Lewis Plaza to investigate a report of a missing child, Barbie Thompson. And when they got there, they were told by neighbors that lived in the complex that they had last seen Barbie walking into the woods with Christopher Segerstrom. When police went to search the woods, they found the body, the remains, the partially clothed remains of 4-year-old Barbie Thompson. It appeared that Barbie had died as a result of blunt force trauma. As it turned out, Christopher Segerstrom lured Barbie into the woods with the promise of catching butterflies. He got her out there. He SA'd her with a stick, and then he killed her by hitting her on the head with a 40-pound rock before smothering her to death. Christopher Segerstrom admitted multiple times in the crowd that day at the apartment complex that he had murdered 4-year-old Barbie Thompson. As you can imagine, Christopher Segerstrom was convicted and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The thing is that, several years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that kids that were under the age of 18 at the time of their conviction were entitled to have the opportunity for parole. So many people, including Christopher Segerstrom, went up to be resentenced. Now, Christopher Segerstrom was resentenced to life in prison. He was resentenced in 2022. Christopher Segerstrom has a long history of being in trouble in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. He has had a mental health evaluation, and it appears that Christopher Segerstrom has been diagnosed with schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder, which is just a nice way of saying that they believe he's a psychopath. At this point, Christopher Segerstrom, who was 15 when he got arrested for this crime, has spent almost 40 years in prison. And while I think that a 15-year-old spending 40 years in prison for something that they did when they were a kid is difficult, I can't help but think of the brutality of the crime. I can't help but think of this little 4-year-old girl that had these terrible things done to her. And what did she do to deserve that? Nothing. I can't help but think of the fact that Christopher's entire adult life has been in prison. And when a person spends so much time in prison, I think that it would be incredibly difficult for them to ever acclimate to the free world. I don't know that this is a person that I would actually think should be eligible for parole. Sometimes it's just not so black and white for me because I tried to see the positives, but this person, I think that maybe he's just where he needs to be. What is your opinion?